we've got Barry and I, my son, have a good fortune of being able to bring on Ron Polk, who I think, he was back in my era, so I guess that's the reason I think it. No, I think it because it's true, was probably the greatest baseball coach in the United States, certainly way ahead in the SEC. He did everything. He worked his fanny off, said what he thought, pushed his baseball program as best he could. Great baseball mind, and I think absolutely terrific. So, Ron, Barry, and I are just pleased to have you on and appreciate you taking time to be on our show.
Wimp, I appreciate the nice remarks. I'm going to put you on the road as my public relations guy.
He said you were back in his era, though. He called you old when he said that in his ear, Ron. I didn't take that.
Well, I am old, and I've got an 18-hour drive from Birmingham to Hyannis, Mass., and I feel older every hour I'm driving.
Oh, Lord.
But, that's part of the job when you coach each summer up in the Cape Cod League, and I've been fortunate to have some Alabama players with me, and Mikey White, and last year Thomas Burrows, and this year their first baseman Cody Henry. So I enjoy coaching up in the Cape Cod League, but I do not enjoy an 18-hour drive.
Oh.
I understand that. Ron, I want to start off by asking you this question before we get into other things. Why does the NCAA treat college baseball the way they treat it?
Well, we got 7 sanctions that no other sport has, yet we're the second largest producer of revenue for the NCAA. And when I tell people that, they look at me confused because they say, well, football has got to be number one. But you have to understand, I think you all do, but the public may not, that the NCAA does not get any money from football. It goes to the conferences, the bowls, and the participating institutions. Men's basketball is way ahead of baseball because of the venues and the TV contract, and we're number 2. And women's basketball is 3, men's ice hockey is 4, it just goes down on the list. We're number 2 in revenue with the regionals, super regionals, and College World Series and the ESPN contract, and I know all this because I've been on the board of the American Baseball Coach Association, former president, so I have inside information on the revenue producing, yet we're dead last in everything. Dead last in scholarships per student athlete, dead last in coaches per student athlete. We're the only sport that you have to sit out a year when you get fired or extracted or dumped, which is happening all over the country right now. We can get into that a little later. We're the only sport our kids have to be eligible 1 semester prior to the semester of competition. We got 11.7 scholarships, and women's crew gets 20. Even softball is ahead of baseball. And they tell us how to spend our 11.7, 27 on scholarships, 8 on it can be walk-on. We're the only sport that tells you how to spend the minimum amount of aid you can give out is 25%. We're the only sport they took all our graduate assistant coaches away from us, the entry-level position for the young coach, and now they give one to women's crew, and there's no high school crew anywhere in the country, so an entry-level position for crew doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. So I call the NCAA an organization that no clue about anything. NCAA, no clue about anything when it comes to college baseball, and I've been battling them tooth and nail all my life.
Well, we're in a situation where I had a comment made to me yesterday on a radio show that because of the situations that we're having where, the Hope scholarships and the lobby so much, it changes that some of the Mississippi schools were able to waive the scholarship, waive the out-of-state tuition to help them get more players. Is that any help at all?
Well, it's a big help. Anytime you can increase to 11.7 to whatever you need to run your program. When I was in Mississippi State, now I don't know if it's changed, but if a young man or a woman or any person come to Mississippi State had a 24 ACT, they had their out-of-state tuition waived. So we started just looking for young men that had 24 or better. It might be higher now. It might even be lower. And so there's a lot of different, it's called creative financing. The privately endowed schools like Vanderbilt and Rice and Stanford and Northwestern and Tulane, they have financial aid packages that are perfectly legal in NCAA rules. They can provide kids that does not count 11.7. But what the biggest problem we have is a lottery-based states. And I coached Alabama for 2 years. The second year we went to the College World Series primarily because I used the Hope Scholarship to build up the depth in our program. And I told our coaches I thought I was stealing. And I felt so bad for those states that don't have it because when you have 11.7 scholarships, anybody who has more than that is going to have a tremendous advantage. And I always felt at Mississippi State, since we didn't have the lottery, that my budget was like the Minnesota Twins playing the Yankees every weekend, because the lottery-based scholarships provided, like at Georgia, tuition and books at that time on the Hope. So you can't go into Georgia and recruit a player. You can't go into Florida and recruit a player because of their lottery-based scholarships, and then Kentucky and Tennessee and Louisiana, and now Arkansas is going to start one very soon. So we're surrounded by lottery-based, and that only affects baseball because we're the lowest denominator in scholarships, 11.7. If we had what Women's Crew has, 20 scholarships, then let Vanderbilt have 30 scholarships and let them have the Hope and the Bryce. But, I mean, we're losing coaches, great coaches, good people, care for the kids. And what their problem is their 11.7 is 11.7, where other schools do not have that limitation, and subsequently they're going to win. I mean, if you have 18 and 19 scholarships and you only have 11.7, the depth of the pitching staff, et cetera, is going to be monumental to overcome. And you may have a good year every 5 years, but you're not going to survive. And so what's happening in the non-lottery states, and this is nationwide, and I'm dealing with this I've dealt with NCAA. All the letters I sent out say this is going to put the cruel coach in Omaha and the nice guy don't have a prayer. And the reason is that the cruel guy is dumping kids left and right. Now, this is an epidemic right now, especially in the Atlantic Coast Conference, Big 12, SEC, the conferences where coaches are making a lot of money. The venues are beautiful. The TV contracts are outstanding. And subsequently, what they're doing, if a boy does not perform immediately when he gets on campus, they get rid of him and they dump him. We're the only sport, baseball is the only partial scholarship sport. When you get dumped, fired, extracted, whatever you want to call it, you have to sit out a year if you go D1 to D1. We're the only sport. I don't mind rules, but when baseball is a targeted sport, that's when it gets my dander up. So what's happening is coaches are bringing kids in, and they're saying, well, this boy's not performing to the expectations. He's a great kid. He's a straight-A student, but I think I can do better. So he dumps the kid, and all of a sudden the kid has to fend for himself, that he may have to go D2, D3, NAIA, or junior college if he's a freshman, and that way he can not have to sit out a year. So what's happening is the nice guy who doesn't dump, and I think Mitch Gaspart's in that category. Gary Henderson, who just lost his job at Kentucky, for sure is in that category. The guy I worked with at UAB as a volunteer coach, Brian Shoup, is in that category. These coaches are under the gun from all their fans and their supporters saying, why don't you do what everybody else is doing? And what they're doing is being great to the kids. You make a commitment to a boy and his family, unless he robs the bank or flunks out of school, by golly, you got to stick with him.
Great point, Barry.
Yeah, we're talking with Ron Polk. Hey, let's talk about the Alabama job. I talk to people here in the community, and they think just because you got this great new facility, all of a sudden that makes it a great job. But I think for the scholarship stuff that you talked about, how good is the Alabama job really when you're not playing with the same scholarships as the people you're competing against?
Well, it's a great university, a great athletic department. You know that as well as anybody. And Mitch Gaspart took me through his beautiful stadium. I was so impressed, especially underneath. And a lot of people who attend their games now, they don't see the locker room and the lounge and the TV room and the meeting room and the video room. I mean, Mitch spent a lot of time, I'm sure, with Bill Battle and others putting that thing together, and he cannot reap the benefits now. The stadium is great. It's going to help attract some kids that maybe would not think about attending the University of Alabama, and it's not going to get solved because the NCAA does not care about college baseball at all. And the SEC, I've dealt with them, and it's great conference, but they just kind of blink at it because it's baseball, it's not football or basketball or women's sports. And so basically, whoever gets the Alabama job is going to have 11.7 scholarships. You can't get any higher. There's no way you're going to do it unless Alabama comes up with a lottery and provides all students who attend the University of Alabama or Harvard or West Alabama tuition-free scholarships. And like in Georgia, when I was there, they also provided a stipend for books. That goes to all students. And so the coach at Alabama is going to have 11.7. Well, Vanderbilt's going to have double that, and it's perfectly legal because they get tied in with the endowed scholarships. Mississippi State and Ole Miss can come into the state of Alabama with that 24 or maybe 22 now, I don't know, and get out of state waive. So what happens is it's creative financing. And the lower your scholarship base, the tougher it gets. And 11.7 is as low as you can get with a roster of 35. By the way, baseball is the only sport that has a roster restriction, too. And everyone always says, well, why is baseball got all these rules? And when I was dealing with the NCAA and fighting them, I talked to all our coaches at Mississippi State, women and men, and I asked, do you have any rules and sanctions that no other sport has? And all of them said no, and we had 7. And I can tell you the reason why. It's not a politically correct reason, but the NCAA is run by college presidents, very intelligent people, but I found out real quickly that they're definitely left-wing, liberal, politically correct people, and they don't have any interest in college baseball except for the money we generate for them, because unfortunately, we're a white sport now because of the scholarship restriction. We don't have as many black kids and Hispanic, or lower economic white. So we're white kids, and we also are boys. And the NCAA is definitely a Title IX organization, which is fine. I've always believed in Title IX. Girls were discriminated against, but baseball is now a discriminated sport. Our kids are discriminated against. Our coaches discriminated against, and I kept asking the NCAA, where's Title 10? Where's Title 10? You talk about discrimination. Baseball is a targeted sport. And 3, we've become an upper-class sport because of travel ball, showcases, lessons, camps, clinics. These parents are forking out all this money trying to chase 11.7. So unfortunately, we've become a white sport. Pretty much. We're also a boys, and 3 that we're an upper-class sport now, like swimming, golf, and tennis is.
That's right. I want to know what kind of effect you had when you were recruiting, because you were such a good recruiter. When a person was going to sign with you, and then all of a sudden he got an offer from maybe a minor league team or a major league team to go professionally, did that make it difficult for you in recruiting? It looks like it would really make it really hard.
Well, 11.7, what you have to do is you have to overcommit, thinking that some of your draft-eligible juniors, in some cases sophomores, if they're older boys, they're going to sign on you and maybe sign 10 kids out of high school or junior college, and the scouts like them also. So you have no idea who's going to show up the first day of school, and no other sport has that problem because you're eligible to sign out of high school and junior college. So that makes 11.7 even tougher. So what happens is the cruel coach, I don't think any baseball coach gets up in the morning and wants to be cruel to kids, but he knows if John is not playing well at shortstop, we got to find somebody else, and so they dump him. But the thing is, basically, is the fact that you got to overcommit, and sometimes then when you overcommit, some kids end up coming to school. You didn't think was going to come to school. You got to call the parents and work out a deal where you give them 30% one year, we'll double it the next year. And and all the coaches become like used car salesmen. This 11.7 for 35 kids just doesn't work. So I'm very jealous of those states that have the lottery, and these coaches are reaping the benefits, and unfortunately coaches will be losing their jobs. The nice guy who does dump kids based on performance or get injured and dump a kid, the nice guy who wants to do what's right for the program, right for the kids, right for the athletic department, they're going to start getting fired. And I told the NCAA, if they allow this to continue, the cruel coach is going to Omaha, the nice guy is going to lose his job, and that's exactly what's happening, especially in the Southeast where baseball is so important.
Well, that is a difficult deal there because you don't know who's going to sign, who's going to go pro, who's going to come. So then you overpromise, or you're not overpromising. You're telling the kid what he can have, and then the kid does end up coming to school. So now you got to pick up the phone and explain to the parents. And the parents are always, think you're trying to pull one over on them when you're really not. That is a difficult phone call to make, isn't it, Coach?
Very, very difficult, but thankfully at Mississippi State we went over a little bit, but not as much as some schools, and that's when the difficult calls come, where you tell a boy, well, you sign a national letter in Temple, we're going to stick you in a junior college for a year. He doesn't want to go to junior college, but you say, hey, we got a 35 roster. We're the only sport that has a roster restriction. I only got 11.7, and we overcommitted to make sure we had a nice ball club next year, and all these kids we thought were going to sign to come into school. And again, it goes back to the NCAA. I put the onus on them. When you have a sport that has 11.7 and every other sport has well above that based on average roster size, what you cause is problems. And it's not like we're revenue net negative. My gosh, again, the second largest producer of revenue for the NCAA, and that's all people ever ask me is, how can this happen? Well, the American Baseball Coach Association, I put it on them too, even though I'm a former president. I had to do all the work for them. The amendments, the overrides, trying to fight these rules, fight the roster restrictions, fight these 7 sanctions that we had, and they didn't want to fight the NCAA because they were so scared of them. They thought if we fight them, they're going to add more restrictions. And I said to them finally, what else can they do? We have 7 sanctions no other sport has. They're going to take our 3rd child? What are they going to do to it?
Ron, were you ever able to sit down, because I know you worked so hard, were you ever able to sit down with a group of people in the NCAA face-to-face without letters and all and go over this at all?
Not allowed. The NCAA is run by the NCAA Executive Committee college presidents, and I dealt with them, had to do by letter. You're not allowed to enter the inner sanctum to talk to them. These presidents are very bright people. They're good people, good family people, but, they're looking at their watch. They've got to catch a plane to go back and raise money for the biology department, and he's trying to explain to them the professional draft, how it affects baseball. Talk about the academic progress rate, why kids are getting dumped now. It's not caught. Dude, that's what we thought was going to control the dumping of kids, is the academic progress rate. But all of a sudden, the NCAA decided, hey, if a kid has a 2.5, you can dump your whole roster. And now with grade inflation, everybody has a 2.5. Nobody gets C's anymore, Wimp. I don't know if you knew that or not. It used to be a C was a pretty good grade when we went to school. So everybody has a 2.5, so you can dump your entire squad as long as that 2.5. It doesn't affect your academic progress rate, and that was a thing that we wouldn't be able to control the coaches from taking advantage of these kids, bringing them in, trying them out, and dumping them. And then all of a sudden they went with that 2.5 rule. I hit the roof, and other coaches were saying to me, keep doing it, keep doing it. I was out. I mean, everybody was supporting me, but most of the coaches were saying, I'd like to do what you do, and I'd like to say what you say, but I get fired if I did it. Well, thankfully, I was winning in Mississippi State, and I could do what I wanted to do. And everyone told me I was right. Everybody tells me, when I say, unfortunately, we're too white, we're also boys, and we're an upper-class sport, that's why the NCAA doesn't like us. Everybody says to me, you're right, but you can't say it. I just said it.
Well, that's what we say about Nick Saban. All the football coaches push him out there and say, hey, Coach, you say it because you can get away with it. Yeah. You go out there and tell them what we're thinking, Coach. And so that's what they had you doing.
That's exactly right. And, I got so much positive vibes from the coaches thanking me for the letter writing campaign. I even got kids involved in writing. I'm trying to run a baseball program in Mississippi State, and I'm also like an NCAA attack dog almost full time. I mean, I wore myself out. I retired at Mississippi State with 3 years left in my contract because I lost the votes, and I knew if I stayed at Mississippi State, I'd have to start dumping kids left and right. And the reason is we're a non-lottery state. And Mississippi State people love their baseball, and they're going to say to me, why are you starting to lose? I say, well, I'm being nice to the kids. And they're going to say, well, we like you to be nice to the kids too, but how about winning some games?
Yeah, nice ain't that great if you're not winning, so that's right.
That's right.
One last question before we let you go. When they select the NCAA teams for the College World Series playoff or the college playoff, is that pretty much up and up, or is that sometimes I always felt like basketball maybe, was a little bit whatever. Is that a pretty good Super Regional and so forth? Is that the best way to do it?
Well, the committee changes often. The chairman changes, I think, every 3 years. I think it's on the up and up. Unfortunately, they don't have many baseball people on the committee. It's mostly athletic directors and assistant athletic directors. And, baseball coaches know the law of the land. But if you get baseball coaches in that committee, there could be some bias in regard to friends and all that. But I think it's on the up and up. But, the RPI is important to them. But, I don't think there's any problem. I don't have any problem with that. I just have a problem with the NCAA, and I have that problem on behalf of kids all over this country. That's what I fought for. The kids are getting basically screwed by the NCAA because of the scholarship limitation, the lottery-based scholarships, and everything I told you about. Everything.
Well, I'll tell this to you. Barry and I are going to be playing this several times, so this is going to be heard.
We hate to get you all
one day next week.
We hate to get you all stirred up
so much
for an 18-hour drive.
Yeah, the mornings are the best for me because we have early work when we get up there, and we're right now scrambling to put a roster together because we've lost some kids to injuries and other. Well, we got 17 of our contracted players in regionals right now, so we hope they win. We hope they don't get hurt. We hope they play well, but we hope their teams lose. To be honest with you.
Thanks, Coach. Have a safe
drive.
Thank
you so much, Coach. Appreciate it.
Okay, you betcha.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay.